All right, everybody, welcome in and welcome to HR Lunch Bunch. It is the month of May. And for those of anybody who's keeping track, it is May 3rd. It is 2023. My name is Deborah Jeffries. I work here at HR Answers, and I have been facilitating this HR Lunch Bunch. In October will be 16 years we've been doing this. That is a long time. But it is my pleasure to welcome in Rachel. She is from the Alzheimer's Association here in the greater Portland area, and she can tell you more about her details. But I've asked her to be part of HR Lunch Bunch. And for those of you who might be new to us, we meet on the first Wednesday of every month. We are meeting now virtually because we have people from all over the state and even as far as Chicago has joined us. So, and I see that Eric is here. And if I'm not mistaken, Eric, you're way out there a ways. So is it Virginia?
I am today. I'm from Chicago, but I'm actually out right now in Virginia, and I'll be here until tomorrow morning. So it's I appreciate you making that acknowledgement, and I actually just I shared this with several of our clients. I hope if they didn't sign up, maybe they'll be able to see the recording.
Absolutely. You know what, when we were doing Lunch Bunch in person, people like you and your members would never be able to join us because they're not driving that far for an hour. So this is one of the benefits of COVID in terms of transitioning to how we're doing this and being able to do it virtually. But I always wanted to be able to, and this is not something that we started proper. This is one of our ex-employees who started HR Lunch Bunch, being able to have a conversation with HR professionals and others and being able to network. Many of us are members of SHRM, and we would go to monthly luncheons, but we were never able to actually talk more in depth and share ideas. So when you see the announcement and it says discussion, I've asked each of the folks that join me to be able to ask questions, be able to say, what are you doing inside your organizations? Where are the concerns? Have you done anything in this area? What are your challenges? So that we can learn from each other as much as we have somebody who's sharing with us. Sometimes they come with a PowerPoint, sometimes they don't. So please feel free to share and network with each other. That's why you have the chat box as well, open to connect with each other. So please feel free. This is our time together to network, to learn, to engage as much as it is to have someone sharing with us. So welcome to all of you. Again, Rachel, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. We talked a little bit in advance about why I thought this was going to be a good conversation. I have a personal story with Alzheimer's within my family, how that impacts me as an individual, but also as an employee within an organization and learning about it, as are more and more organizations keeping and having employees stay longer and longer. In Oregon, we have very much a mom and pop kind of population within our organizations. And oftentimes those family members or parental individuals stay within the operations. They might themselves be experiencing some of this. As HR professionals, how do we navigate? How can we help each and every one of those kinds of scenarios? So I hope not only might you be sharing info, answering questions, maybe even sharing a little bit of the recent research that has some exciting developments for us to be aware of. The floor is yours, my dear. I am here to facilitate the chat box, to aid in any way that I can, but thank you so much for being willing to participate today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I do have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share some slides and kind of give a little bit of an overview on the Alzheimer's Association, who we are, what we do, how businesses and individuals can engage with us. And then we're going to open it up for questions or discussion about just to, really open, like an open dialogue is the goal. So thank you all very much. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So again, hello everyone. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to connect with you today and share some information about the Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's and dementia. My name is Rachel Sarasohn. I am the longest day manager with the Alzheimer's Association here in Portland, Oregon. I'm part of our Oregon and Southwest Washington chapter, but we are a national organization. So regardless of where you are, there is an Alzheimer's Association serving your area. I've been with the association for almost 2 years, and I just personally have been so inspired by the work and passion of our supporters, volunteers, and donors. The work really is having a profound and lasting impact on the disease of Alzheimer's and all other dementia. I did want to do a quick show of hands. You can use either raise your hand if you're on camera or use the hand raising feature in Zoom. But I did want to see how many of you know someone who's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. We've got some hands being raised, thumbs up. If we take a moment to look around, it's something that really does affect everyone. It's, really, in many cases, a 1 degree of separation of knowing someone who has this diagnosis. And it really shows how widespread the impact of the disease can be. In our businesses and communities, the Alzheimer's and dementia have affected many of us, but worldwide, the numbers really are staggering. I'm going to start with a quick video that is from the Alzheimer's Association's annual Alzheimer's disease facts and figures report, which is available if anyone is interested. It has a ton of information about sort of the current place that the disease is at and can provide a lot of in-depth information. The video is a quick overview. So as you can see, the numbers really are staggering. With more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease and over 11 million providing unpaid care for people living with the disease, it's also one of the most expensive diseases in America, which as HR professionals and business professionals, you are well aware of the impact that the expense of a disease like this can have, not only on an individual and a family, but also on a business community. If left unchecked, Alzheimer's disease will destroy our finances, our families, and our futures. Fortunately, the Alzheimer's Association is leading the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia with the help of people like you nationwide who have joined the So I did want to quickly touch on what the Alzheimer's Association does and how we move our mission forward. We have 6 strategic objectives that we focus on as an organization. We educate and raise awareness to grow the understanding with events like this. We also advocate for the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease and all other dementia. We provide care and support for those affected by the disease. We accelerate research across the globe. We increase revenue through the mobilization of communities to accelerate progress and maximize our mission impact. And then we also lead strategic initiatives to support diversity and a culture of inclusivity. I do want to take a quick moment to ensure that we're all on the same page with some important definitions. Our mission does reference both Alzheimer's and dementia. I am curious if anyone feels like they have a good understanding of the difference and want to maybe hop off mute and share, or I could just move on. Okay, well, I will give the explanation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Dementia is the general term for loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. Dementia is not a singular disease. It is an umbrella overall term similar to heart disease or cancer. It covers a wide range of specific medical conditions, including Alzheimer's disease. Disorders that are grouped together under the term dementia are caused by abnormal brain changes. These changes can trigger a decline in thinking skills. We also call those cognitive abilities. And then really the key around dementia and Alzheimer's is that it's severe enough to impact our daily life and independent function. It's not a normal part of getting older. It also can affect behaviors, feelings, and relationships. Alzheimer's disease accounts for between 60 and 80% of dementia cases. Vascular dementia is the second most common, and that occurs when there's microscopic bleeding and a blood vessel blockage in the brain. Those who experience, there are people also that can have multiple forms of dementia, and those are considered mixed dementia. And yeah, I was saying, Mal, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do, Rachel. Even though not everybody who's older is not going to get dementia of some sort,
Right.
there's, because of the definition you provided, that term of loss of memory, other thinking abilities could also happen from other injuries, like traumatic brain injury.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
This has still some age relevance, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, it does have age relevance. It is a progressive disease. It often starts out slowly and gets worse. There are people who do get diagnosed quite young. It's not just an old person's disease, but the great majority of people who have Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia are on the older end. But I think a key note that I like to make sure people understand is that it is not a normal part of getting older. There is some sort of memory loss that sort of naturally happens as we age, but that is not the same as dementia.
Rachel, I'm sorry not to hog this, but
yeah, no,
even with the early onset, it's still in the middle age group, right? It never happens to like a 10-year-old. It's 40 plus.
Yeah, it's an older, yes. I mean, I do know of someone who's in their 30s who has been diagnosed with early onset, but that is not very common at all. And it definitely is 65 and plus tends to be the bulk of the cases. I think another thing that's important to note, like I mentioned, is that often dementia will start out slowly and gradually get worse. So if you are noticing either in yourself or someone in your life is experiencing memory difficulties or other personality changes or changes in thinking, really don't ignore them. See a doctor as soon as possible to determine the cause. It's really important to get screened, to really, if there are concerns, to get connected to help and support and get your questions answered. As the video shared, even with all this information, 4 in 10 Americans say, only 4 in 10 Americans would say that they would see a doctor right away if they experienced a symptom of dementia, which means the majority, over 60%, would wait or not see a doctor at all.
And but don't you think, Rachel, so I'm just going to go there.
Yeah.
I'm someone who, it's like, sometimes it's like, I can't figure out the word, can't remember the word, can't remember things. And my husband sort of teases me and gives me a hard time, but my son now is like, are you taking your brain pills? And probably I haven't talked to my doctor about that. And I think, well, I'm just like, I'm overloaded. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not forgetting the important things.
Right.
It's not impacting my ability to work or family, but I can't remember that word, or I'm having a hard time remembering. Like right now we're working on something for work I'm trying to remember past employees, like past employee, and it's like, okay, but isn't that kind of normal? So, I mean,
yeah, right.
How do you know when it's normal? Yeah. I'm not normal.
Yes. So I wish there was, I wish I could get, this is normal, this is not normal. That's I'm especially because I'm not a medical professional, so I want to be aware of what I'm saying. But I think, my understanding and sort of the talking points that we work with, it's really things that are impacting your ability to live your life, your day-to-day life. It is not, oh, what the heck, what was that name of the restaurant that we went to for our anniversary 2 years ago, or, things like that maybe are not things that are going to impact your day-to-day life, are less concerning. I would say if you're finding that you're searching for words more often, or you are forgetting things that you should remember, that you've remembered in the past, that's the point where having a conversation with your medical professional is valuable. I would also say, generally speaking, if you or your loved one is concerned, it doesn't hurt to ask your doctor. And that's true across the board. I've worked for other health nonprofits, and I would say that for for anything related to your heart or cancer, cancer concern, if you got a mole that it sort of looks okay, but maybe it doesn't, ask your doc. I think we all need to work at being good advocates for ourselves, as particularly in medical settings. They're there to serve us. So we need to speak up and say, hey, I just want to make sure that this seems normal, or seems something, or if it's something that we should be concerned about. So I really, I encourage us all to do that. But I would say specifically around dementia, if it is not impacting your day-to-day life and your ability to live your day-to-day life, it's less concerning. And there is a certain degree as we get older, things that we just don't remember. Were there any other questions before? I just have a few more slides. Mel?
Sorry again. So you will talk about differentiating diagnosis, maybe? So I don't ask the question. Because I'm thinking right now with the long haul COVID, so many people are probably confusing brain fog. I can't remember. I mean, the memory loss is part of it. And it's another one that's there's not a good diagnostic tool.
Right.
I guess depression could cause it. There may be other mental health issues, which obviously they would also need to be addressed. Hopefully somebody goes to doctor for that.
So
is there a diagnostic tool for Alzheimer's?
There is. There are diagnostic tools. That actually isn't a part of my presentation, so I'm really glad you asked. But yes, there are diagnostic tools. It's definitely something to ask your medical provider about. I would agree about the long COVID. That is something that a lot of current research is being done around, and that's something that we're not going to know for quite a while, how all of that relates to dementia, and does that actually end up becoming another form of dementia, because it's all so new. I mean, there's so much unknown about COVID and about the lasting impact it's going to have on our health. So, but that is something that people are doing a lot of research around. So, that's a lot of the work that we're doing as an organization. We're funding research. We have research that we're funding here locally in, at OHSU, down in Corvallis at OSU. There's being research done. There's being research done at Legacy Health. And then there's research being done across the nation. So there's a lot happening, and we're really, figuring out, but there are, yes, between brain scans and then other diagnostic tests, there are ways to to get Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia diagnosed. So that's just something to talk to your medical professional about. I did also want to touch on the D&I work that we as an organization are doing. At the Alzheimer's Association, we believe that diverse perspectives are critical to achieving health equity. That really is one of our main goals, and really meaning that all communities have a fair and just opportunity for an early diagnosis and access to risk reduction and quality care. Like any disease, an early diagnosis is really important. It provides more time. It provides more time for people to be active participants in their lives, to plan for their future. So it's really valuable for all of our communities to have access to a diagnosis, to medical care. We're really, as an association, committed to engaging with underrepresented and underserved communities and responding with resources and education to address these disproportionate impacts. So, like I mentioned before, I am with the Oregon and Southwest Washington chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. In Oregon alone, there are more than 70,000 people age 65 and older that are living with Alzheimer's disease. And we have over 130,000 caregivers in the state, and they are providing more than 210 million hours of unpaid care. So that's a huge part of this disease, that we have people that are in the workforce or have left the workforce because they have to provide care for their loved ones who have this disease. And that's a way that it really can, HR professionals and businesses really are impacted by this disease beyond sort of the normal personal impact that you as individuals could potentially face. It's really, we find a lot of value in educating HR professionals and business owners about Alzheimer's disease because it is impacting their staff. So, we as an organization work to address this growing crisis by providing education and support to millions who face dementia every day, whether it's as someone with a diagnosis or as a caregiver. And, we're really advancing critical research towards methods of treatment, prevention, and then ultimately, of course, our goal is a cure. We are very excited. We are in an age of treatment, which is just really, really exciting. We are so excited to be there. We're so excited that there are drugs that have preliminary approval from the FDA and are available. There are some challenges that we're facing around that we're really pushing on. One of the main being that the Center for Medicare and Medicaid has decided to not approve the payment of these drugs. So we as an organization are really pushing for them to reconsider that choice. This has never been done before, where there are other drugs that have preliminary approval from the FDA that are covered, cancer drugs, heart disease drugs, things like that. So the fact that they have said that they are not going to cover this class of drugs is really frustrating for us as an organization. And we're really pushing back and really letting people know that without that coverage, these drugs are not accessible to individuals. And every day that goes by without this approval, 20,000 people are progressing in their disease to the point where these drugs will not benefit them. So, you know, early detection is incredibly valuable, because that's where a lot of the research and the drugs that have become available are really going to have the greatest impact. So we as an organization are out there educating people so we can really push people to get an early diagnosis. And then we're also on the other side really pushing to ensure that there's access to these drugs. So yeah, that's my little bit about where we're at with research. So I am next kind of going to move into, now that you've gotten all this information, kind of and you have a sense of the challenge at hand, you may be asking yourself, how can we help? But I did want to pause to see if there were any questions or anything that anyone wanted to share before I kind of get into the second part of my presentation.
When we get done with the community stuff, I really want us to be able to talk about employees and supervisors and HR.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would love to hear that conversation. So yeah, so this part will be pretty quick. But yeah, so basically we as an organization, there's tons of ways to engage with us. You can engage as an individual, as a business, and then what we're providing back to the community is really valuable. So as an individual, some of the great ways to engage with us are to share your personal story as an advocate. You know, all of us have a connection to this cause. So we are always looking for people that want to share their story, particularly we're doing a lot on the advocacy side right now, both locally and nationally. So if that is something that you're interested in, it's really, you know, you can do a lot, or you can do, you know, you sign up and then you get an email and you add your name to a petition and it goes off, and it's really easy to participate. So if anyone's interested in that, please let me know. We also provide educational classes and support groups. This is kind of just a taste of what we do. We have educational classes that really get into like the nitty-gritty about warning signs, communicating with people that have Alzheimer's disease, really educating yourself. That's something that we would love to come into a business and provide. There's lots of opportunities there. We also have clinical trials and research trials that we can connect people with. Even if you don't have something happening in your local area, we have someone who lives in the Vancouver area who's part of a trial that's actually out of Boston, and she once a month gets some brain games that she does, and she does them on her phone and then sends back her results, and so she's part of a research trial or research study that way. And then of course we have some great fundraising opportunities that folks can engage with either as an individual or as a business. And then some of the resources that we offer to the community are our 24/7 helpline. So that is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. People can call 1-800-272-3900. You're connected to a master level clinician who will answer your questions. They really do have the science and the knowledge to answer sort of those more technical questions and really support you. We also have alz.org, which is our website, which has a ton of resources on it. And then we also have our communityresourcefinder.org, which would connect you to any local resources, education support, caregiving resources. So that's something that's really valuable to have kind of in your back pocket. It connects you to not only things that the Alzheimer's Association puts on, but also to other organizations and other opportunities to get support. And then I just have a couple quick slides to click through about some of the things that we do. We do have our Memories in the Making, which is an art class for people with early onset Alzheimer's or dementia. They can come in and really express themselves through art. The focus is on the process, not the product. And it really allows the participants and their caregivers to experience some joy and a sense of accomplishment. Some of the art then is put into our Memories in the Making art auction and gala, which happens every spring in Portland. And it's a really fun night to come out and celebrate the art, have a great night out. We have a wonderful silent auction, live auction, a great dinner, and it's a great way to support the Alzheimer's Association. We also have our Walk to End Alzheimer's. They are held annually. We have 7 in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Here are a few of the dates that have been set, and then we have dates coming out for our Medford, Eugene, and Bend walks. It's a great opportunity for a business to sign up a team, come out and enjoy. So if you are in the Portland area, the walk is at the Oregon Zoo, which is a lot of fun. But they're all really great community events to come out to bring a group of staff or friends and family and show your support for the Alzheimer's Association. And then specifically what I do is a program called The Longest Day. It is a fundraising campaign where people have an activity that they really enjoy doing on their own or as a business or a community group. They use their creativity and passion to raise funds for the Alzheimer's Association. Typically, the events take place on June 21st or around there because that's the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. And it's a really great opportunity for folks. If you're not, to go to a big event or to put something together to show up is not going to work. The Longest Day is a great way to just participate as a business or individually. We can come into your business to do something and you don't have to get your staff to go somewhere else, which can be really nice, a nice opportunity. So it's a great event that I really enjoy supporting. Yeah, and then just to kind of touch base again on our 1-800 number, which really is one of our, most valuable programs that we offer. It's available around the clock. We really, there's great supportive staff that answer the phone any time of day or night to get people the support that they need. We have really amazing educational programming and support groups. And then, like I said, we have our Alzheimer's Association and AARP Community Resource Finder. That is a great way to get connected to any resources that folks are looking for. And then I love to wrap up with this quote. Our founder is Jerome Stone, and he started the Alzheimer's Association when his wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1970. At the time, information about Alzheimer's disease, even in the medical community, was really limited. And he really believed that this disease was cloaked in silence, and he really wanted to create a global conversation about Alzheimer's disease. So this quote from him is really powerful and says, do things here and now, not after you're gone. If you have some money, share it. And if you have some time, do something worthwhile. So yeah, I just, and his goal and vision was really a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. And that's the goal that we're all working for. I have a young child, and I think a lot about, I don't want him to have to, give up his dreams to become a caregiver for me or for someone else in his life that has this disease, or the thought of him having to face this disease himself is really scary to me. And, really, our goal is to work for this future for our children and grandchildren and ourselves to not have to face this disease. So yeah, I just, this is my contact information. If anyone has any questions or does want to get involved with us as an organization, I would love to chat and provide resources. Specifically The Longest Day, we can do something as simple as an email campaign or putting a fundraising link in your signature for the month of June, which is Alzheimer's and Brain Health Awareness Month, and ask your clients and the people you support to donate on your behalf. We can make it really simple to engage and support the work that we do. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Are there resources available in other languages?
There are, yes. So the 1-800 number, there are, I believe, people that speak Spanish and Chinese on that, but they also contract with a translation service. So if someone does call that speaks a language that isn't, automatically covered, they can get a translator will come on the phone line and help with that. And then on our website, there are Chinese, Spanish, and I believe Russian available. And then there are additional things that are available and can be translated. So yeah, we do offer things in foreign languages.
Great question, Mel.
Yeah.
Other
Well, it's beyond, it's obviously a cultural issue too, not just translating it.
Yes. Yeah. And they are, they're not just like put in Google Translate. They have been vetted and worked with people in those communities to ensure the translation.
I don't even mean the right
Oh, okay.
translation. I mean approaches to caregiving.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And we recognize that. And that really does also come, I'm going to stop sharing, but that comes up in the D&I work that we do, is that we recognize that the way cultures provide caregiving, the way cultures provide support, multi-generational living, like we recognize that is part of sort of how we need to work with individuals. And we really do take that into consideration in the work that we do. And like all organizations, we're striving to be better.
So I'm interested in you all who are here today talking a little bit about this as a challenge in the workplace from, do I have employees who are impacted as that caretaker and needing the pull between family and work, and supervisors dealing with or the accommodation of, so kind of that as a piece. Do we have any potential employees who might be experiencing memory loss, and have we approached them? Have we said anything? Are we noticing that? Is it impacting them at work? Have we had situations, and how are we dealing or working through that? Because I think that this is, if we aren't now, my fear is that we could be, especially as people continue to stay in the workplace and we still have 5 generations. And so I think that would open it up for, have you? Any tips, suggestions? First from all of you, and then from Rachel in terms of the association and information, because I love the idea of having someone come in and chat with us to us as an employer, but I also want to as the employer. So I see Eric and Julie, so feel free to weigh in.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of what you just shared right now is a lot of what I've been thinking about probably over the last, we'll say easily 6 months, because when you think about employees who are working through, let's say a parent and who's dealing with, Alzheimer's or dementia, it impacts the individual. So I was at I've been at a conference this week, and one of the topics that we talked about in our session was to the greater group was, we need to focus on mental health, and acknowledging it, and just checking in on people, because the mental health has always been that taboo thing to talk about. Oh, we don't talk about it, or oh wait, it's it could be a disability, and oh, I'm afraid of that. But in our post-COVID world now, a lot of folks are dealing with mental health matters, and the more we hide it, or not even speak of it or let others know what we're going through, the less of an ability we'll have to really deal with it appropriately and get the right either accommodations or just the right bit of empathy from from a supervisor or team member. But one of the other things that and I put something in here earlier about really understanding the difference between both of them, because the thing is with an aging workforce, the reality is that there may be some within our workforces that actually are dealing with the early onsets of Alzheimer's or dementia. And how do we deal with that? Because I mean, that for me, it's a sensitive subject, and it's like, how do you bring that up to somebody, or how do you make someone aware of it, that you're noticing these different things when they may not necessarily notice it at first. I'm really interested in that piece there. If anyone has some insights or some thoughts on how to deal with that, because there are folks all over the country that we work with that that could potentially apply to.
Anybody dealing with that, having those conversations in your workplaces?
Mental health, but not specific to this. I was kind of curious on how to address it. If you kind of felt like there was some signs, what was the most appropriate way to address that with an employee? Actually, in some of these cases, it's a senior employee maybe.
Yeah. So Ellie, I am pulling a document that I'm going to put into the chat that is our 10 warning signs. So it is something to kind of keep in your back pocket, read through, of things to kind of be on the lookout for. It also does include some sort of tips on the end about how to approach a conversation. It is definitely written from the perspective of like a friend or a family member versus an employee-employer relationship. But I think it would be useful to kind of touch as a resource for sure. And then, I think the biggest thing would be to have open conversations, because I think there's a lot of fear around this disease, particularly with individuals being afraid of losing their independence, particularly if it's someone who is still working and like you said, is this maybe a senior staff member who this is a lot of who they are as a person. And we like to really say to approach every conversation with empathy and grace, and really, express that it's coming from a place of maybe of some concern and wanting to support people. And with the realization that lots of people may respond with that's not going on and are not open to having that conversation.
If I may, I think the biggest thing that's important that we are not here to diagnose as employers. That would be very wrong to start with thinking, I think you have Alzheimer's or any other diagnosis. I think you kind of touched upon it, Rachel. There's obviously something we observed, and it could be a safety concern. It could be a performance related, and it could be because they're dehydrated or they have, uncontrolled blood sugar. So there could be hundreds of reasons why. But you as the employer have an obligation to make sure to keep a safe workplace for your employees, for your customers, for the co-workers, whatever they're doing. So I think understanding their job duties, understanding your employees' baseline and seeing the differences in their behavior and having that conversation without any judgment or diagnosis is how I would start. I have noticed this has been happening. I'm concerned about you. Have you been to a doctor? Is something going on? Because maybe you need FEMLA, intermittent leave. Do you know you have rights under ADA? How can I help you? What do you need, if anything? And they may be like, I never thought about it. My wife's or husband's been complaining, or yeah, I noticed it. Maybe I should go. And you would be surprised. I have had something like this. The supervisor was concerned the employee was not performing right, and having all these diagnostic ideas. What's wrong with them? Turned out the person actually had a liver failure beginning and actually died within the year. But they were able to, he went to a doctor and found out something horrible was going on in his body. I was going to ask you if there was a difference in diagnosis, catching it for women and men different, because I don't know, I don't want to sound sexist, but if there's a gender difference, who gets to mask it more, longer. My grandma did forever. She masked it. We didn't know it until her husband died, and suddenly it just bloomed. It was there all along. So they may be, not recognize deliberately trying not to show it because it's a weakness in the workplace too. You don't want to lose your job if you notice these things. So I would definitely not diagnose it, approach it by anything. Nothing against it. Could be Alzheimer's. It could be anything else. But there are certainly, and then that's the employee side of it, and obviously, as a caregiver, it's a whole different set of
So-
discussions.
This is Eric, and Rachel, I think that the 10 signs document you're going to share with us here, I think that could be used as a good general awareness meeting for everybody, in a way of speaking from okay, we're talking about mental health today. And one of the topics that we're going to cover is Alzheimer's and dementia. And whether we deal with it personally in our personal lives, or somebody with it, and maybe approach it from that perspective now, knowing that there's that resource that's what sort of came to mind. And the thing is of course, you never want to go about, being the doctor for anybody in a workplace. But I think one of the things that you can do so that there is general awareness is, all right, here we are, we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about something that impacts, a large population, and it could be impacting you. And you're in not necessarily a direct impact, but it could be an indirect impact through a family member. So all that said, let's talk about what this means, and maybe go through the 10 signs there, but then also put in there a caveat that, look, there's there are also other potentially underlying matters, and with the COVID fog brain thing, which I'll be honest with you, I've personally forgotten about that, and I'm vaccinated and boosted 2 times, and I still managed to get COVID by going to a conference. And what I've noticed is that I personally have a hard time recalling names when I'm sort of on the fly, as opposed to what was in the past. And I think that's probably a factor of the recent COVID exposure I had. But things like that, it's all part of, I think, an awareness, a general awareness within the workplace. Just like there's bloodborne pathogen training, that's given for certain classes of employees. Well, this is mental health training, and it's around Alzheimer's and dementia. I don't know, that sort of makes it, I think when we get that document, I think that's probably a good tool that could be used.
Well, and I think, Eric, your comment in terms of just in general, when we're thinking about supervisors, there's so much for them to know and be aware of, that mental health in general is just one of those. And, to Mel's point, paying attention to when someone is off, when we see something that's different, that we would address that like any other performance or behavior issue, and that we're noticing something. And it usually is something is not being done, or something's being duplicated, something's not being remembered. You're asking multiple people to do the same thing. And so you're seeing a pattern of behavior that is not what it normally is, whatever normal is, whatever is true for them. And that we would want to address that in some fashion, because that could be the first time they're noticing it. And oftentimes, let's face it, we're probably too close to it. We're not thinking it the same way other people are experiencing it. So being able to handle it like any other kind of initial process is our best bet from an HR standpoint. And Jen, please feel free to chime in. Julie, did I see that you had your hand up earlier, or your emoji and wanted to ask a question or weigh in some fashion, or was I hallucinating?
You were not hallucinating. Eric pretty much encapsulated just about everything that I wanted to say. Just need to add on to it. Personally, I had 7 family members when I was a teenager and in my early 20s succumb to Alzheimer's related illnesses. And I look back at those experiences and I just remember a lot of anger and a lot of loss of independence. So when I look at 3 or 4 people here, I'm scared of that conversation because a couple of them are living on their own and the breadwinners of their families. And just that same anger, coming back. Obviously I don't want to accuse anything. I just care deeply and want to make sure that, they're okay, really.
Right. And isn't that wonderful that you care? Because I think that that's one of those elements that it's kind of like, well, that's not me. That's not my family. That's not my issue. That's not mine. And the answer is the fact that this is the human piece of human resources. This is the human piece of remembering we're a supervisor of others. And we need to care. And we need to be able to take care of our people, not crossing the boundary inappropriately. But I would tell you, I would rather have you care than not care, and being able to help or support or point somebody in the right direction, or ask them to reach out to family, or if we're bringing education in, or we're providing it, or providing links, or somehow setting the stage for that information to be readily available, or something that sometimes can start the process, whether what kind of healthcare, what kind of EAP we have, whatever options might be out there, because sometimes it's just didn't know I had it, didn't know it was available, didn't know it was a thing. So that people even know, and sometimes again, family are sometimes too close, and it takes something big. Or again, we're good. We as human beings are great at justification. We'll justify everything for every reason, except confront what might be right in front of us. And so we need somebody more objective, that might say, hey, I care about you. And that's a thing. That's real.
So I was gonna say, I'm having some issues uploading the document that I had mentioned, but I would love to email it out to everyone. And is everyone's email on the thing you sent me?
Station form? I think so.
Okay.
So,
Or if people want to drop their email in the chat, I would love to follow up and share a couple of resources around, particularly around the 10 warning signs.
yeah, I think the only person I don't, but we have Eric's contact information.
Yeah, and Eric actually shared his with me.
Okay.
So
okay, yeah. And I think that video is a good one, that we should be able to access and share that.
oh
with
yeah, I
people,
can
'cause that's
I'll include that as well. It's on YouTube, so that's easy to share. And then Ellie, yes, we do have data for Washington as well, around, and the numbers are higher because the population is higher in Washington. But yeah, it's pretty significant, the amount. Could you sort of take into consideration that there are some people that like fully exit the workforce to provide care, and then there's people that are providing after work, early in the morning, on the weekends, like over their lunch hour. Very often someone is getting care from multiple family members, and it's coming from a lot of different places. And one thing that we're really seeing too is sort of that sandwich effect, where you have people that are younger who are providing care for their older relatives and their younger children, and that's happening as well, where the family member is not in the workforce, and then they are providing care on both ends. So, they're providing like grandparent or older parent care, and then also young child care. And that has its own challenges.
Rachel, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I did have a few employees who actually had to resign because, especially during COVID, it was impossible to find any care facilities. Or is that changing? Is it getting better in our state?
It is, just sort of generally speaking, it's improving just because places are open and they can have larger capacity, the capacity numbers have gone back up. We also, as a state, there has been some investment. We have a statewide dementia coordinator that is a government position, and that's someone who we work really closely with that is sort of drawing attention to some of these issues. But yeah, similarly, I mean, there are capacity issues everywhere, memory care facilities, staffing issue, there's a lot of staffing issues in senior care. I mean, everywhere has staffing issues, but senior care has really been affected by the pandemic. A lot of staff have left senior care and they're really struggling to have full capacity in their staff, because it's hard work. It's really hard work. So that's something that we're, sort of actively aware of and trying to, it has gotten better, but that still has some ways to go.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, it is 1 o'clock. So that is our official break time. Now we can still hang out and chat if people would like to, but I want to be thoughtful about time. So Rachel, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, we've got some good questions and some good dialogue. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us and being here today. So thank you. Again, HR Lunch Bunch, first Wednesday of every month. Next month, we're going to have a conversation around recruiting. Where are you? How are you? How are you doing? What do you need? What's working? What's not working? We're going to be joined by a woman by the name of Anne. I'm sure Anne has a last name. I don't know. I'm losing it today. But she spends quite a bit of time in that space. So she's going to join us and give us, hopefully, some helpful hints that we can use on our own. Because we even at HR Answers have a job posting for a professional consultant, and probably could have used her ahead of time. But it is what it is, right? Timing is everything. So hopefully you can join us or spread the word. Otherwise, we do, I think, have everybody's emails. We'll make sure you get an announcement about a follow-up for the recording, the additional materials, as always. So I'm going to call it official. I'm going to stop the recording, but that doesn't mean you have to go away.
I'm not
if
going
you want to hang out and chat.
I have another question.
Thank you, Rachel.
Feel free.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
just going to
you
stop the
all.
recording.
Okay, good.
Thank you,
Rachel,
everybody.
I'm on the